What if I told you that a potential solution for clogged arteries could be sitting right there in your kitchen cabinet? Today, we're going to dive deep into our source material and explore some pretty amazing claims about simple drinks that could make a huge difference. Let's get right into it.
I mean, it's a pretty bold question, isn't it? Can something that simple actually have an impact on one of the most complex systems in our entire body? Well, we're going to break down what the sources say and find out what's really behind this idea. All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start by really understanding the problem inside our arteries. Then we'll look at the root cause. After that, we'll check out two totally different solutions, a modern take with cacao powder and a more traditional kitchen remedy. And we'll wrap it all up with some key nutrients and your path forward. Okay, first things first. Before we can even begin to talk about solutions, we have to get to the absolute heart of the problem. You see, it's not just about plaque building up out of nowhere. It's about what kicks that whole process off to begin with. So, according to our source material from Dr. Berg, the real villain here isn't cholesterol by itself. Nope, it's something that happens before cholesterol even gets to the party. It all starts with damage to the super delicate single-cell lining inside your arteries. It's called the endothelium, and that is the true ground zero for all the trouble. This right here completely reframes how we think about plaque. It all starts with that damage to the delicate lining, right? That damage immediately triggers inflammation. So what does your body do? It rushes in to try and patch things up. But this repair job, well, that's what we actually call plaque. It's this mix of calcium, cholesterol, and protein. So plaque isn't the enemy. It's basically a scar from a repair process that's just gone a little overboard. And this number, wow. This really shows you just how serious this is. All that internal damage creates a rough, inflamed surface, which makes it way, way easier for a clot to form. And get this, the sources state that a whopping 90% of heart attacks involve a blood clot, which is a direct result of this underlying damage. So the takeaway here is huge. We have to address the damage itself. Okay, so if the real problem is this internal damage, the next question is obvious. What in the world is causing it? Well, our sources point to one major culprit in our modern diet, and I'm betting it's not what you think it is. This quote from Dr. Berg is it's such a perfect way to picture it, isn't it? Just imagine sugar acting like corrosive rust on the smooth, shiny inner lining of a pipe. That's pretty much the effect it has on that delicate endothelial layer, creating that first bit of damage that kicks off the whole inflammatory mess we just talked about. Now this slide, this is where things get absolutely nuts. Your body, right, is designed to perfectly handle about 1 single teaspoon of sugar in your entire bloodstream at any given time. 1. But the average person, our source says, is chugging down the equivalent of 75 teaspoons a day. The only reason we're not instantly overwhelmed is because insulin acts like a frantic vacuum cleaner, just working like crazy to pull all that toxic excess sugar out of the blood. And there's one last piece to this puzzle. You see, a healthy endothelium produces this amazing molecule called nitric oxide. Think of it as a natural chill pill for your arteries. It helps them relax, stay flexible, and keeps the blood flowing freely. But when the endothelium gets damaged by stuff like high sugar, nitric oxide production just tanks. The arteries get stiff, they can't relax, and boom, your blood pressure starts to climb.
Okay, so now we get the problem, right? Endothelial damage leads to low nitric oxide. So let's look at the first solution presented in the sources. This one's a pretty modern approach, and it's backed by some seriously cool research. I just love this phrase from the source material, exercise in a cup. Get this, a study actually compared the improvement in blood flow you get from high flavanol cacao powder to the improvement you get from moderate exercise. And the results? They were almost identical. That is a wild, wild concept to think about. So how in the world does it work? Well, cacao is just loaded with these plant compounds called flavonols. And these flavonols literally trigger your body to start producing more of that all-important nitric oxide. That, in turn, helps reverse stiffness and makes your arteries way more flexible. And the effects add up over time. One study even found it could improve artery thickness to a level you'd see in people 20 to 30 years younger. And this slide points out a really important difference. Dr. Berg explains that something like beetroot powder, it directly gives your body nitric oxide. Cacao powder, on the other hand, works differently. It stimulates your body's own internal machinery to make more of its own nitric oxide. You know, it's the classic difference between giving a man a fish and teaching him how to fish.
All right, so if you want to try this, here's the game plan. The absolute key is using raw cacao powder. It's less processed and has way more of those good flavonols. You mix it with warm water, not boiling because you don't want to destroy the delicate compounds. And here's a pro tip from the source. For the best effect on your arteries, try to have it 2 hours before or after your coffee, because caffeine can actually have the opposite effect and constrict things. Okay, let's switch gears completely. We just talked about a modern superfood. Now we're going to turn to a traditional remedy from Persian sources that, believe it or not, has actually been put to the test in a real scientific study.
This is just fascinating. A study looked at this exact mixture of garlic and lemon. And over 8 weeks, the group that took the mixture saw a significant drop in both their top and bottom blood pressure numbers and their BMI, especially when you compare them to the control group who saw no real changes. It's basically modern science validating a really old practice. How cool is that?
So, how do you make this stuff? Well, the traditional recipe says to blend 30 garlic cloves with 5 whole lemons. Just make sure to get the seeds out. You add that blend to a liter of water. Now, listen up, because this next part is the most critical step mentioned in the sources. Bring it to a boil just once, a single boil, and then turn it off immediately. You do that to preserve all the active compounds. Then you just let it cool, strain it, and pop it in the fridge. Now, the instructions for taking it are very specific. You drink about 30 cc, which is basically half a small cup, every day for 3 weeks straight. Then you take a complete break for 8 days. After the break, you repeat that 3-week cycle one more time. The sources suggest that this whole course is something you can do once a year for general maintenance.
Okay, so we've looked at two very different drinks. But here's the thing. The source material really emphasizes that these remedies don't work in a vacuum. They work best when they're supported by a solid foundation of key nutrients that are just essential for your heart and arteries. Let's do a quick rundown of these key players. First up, magnesium. It helps your arteries relax. It's like the counterbalance to calcium, which makes things contract. Next, vitamin K2 is like a traffic cop for calcium, telling it, hey, go into the bones, stay out of the arteries. Then you've got niacin, or B3, which helps call in the cleanup crew to remove cholesterol from your arteries. And finally, polyphenols, like the ones we saw in cacao, are powerful bodyguards that protect that all-important endothelial lining.
And here is the absolute bottom line. None of this is magic. Whether we're talking about cacao powder or a traditional garlic remedy, their effectiveness just skyrockets when you back them up with some solid foundational lifestyle choices.
So, here are the big takeaways from the sources for your long-term health. Adopting a low-carb diet to cut down on that rusting effect from sugar, getting in regular exercise, considering something like intermittent fasting, and getting some sensible sun exposure, which the sources note helps with vitamin D and infrared light, both of which support nitric oxide. It's really about creating an entire environment where your arteries can finally heal and thrive.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive. We've talked about the problem, the real root cause, and a few really interesting potential solutions, from modern science all the way to ancient tradition. This final slide leaves us with a simple, but I think a really powerful question to think about. Looking at everything we've covered, what's the first small, totally doable change you might consider making for your health? Thanks so much for watching.